So on the Fatima episode, we said that we were going to do Fatima and Akita, and then we were like, we'll do Akita, Good Success, La Salette, and then we'll do the secrets. But at this pace, I mean, because the last episode that we released was just Akita, and it was a relatively shorter episode, but I think Our Lady of Good Success this one is probably going to be in an episode all of itself as well.
Well, it might be.
But we'll play it by ear.
We'll play it by ear.
Play it by ear.
Welcome to Catholic Guardians,
An unapologetically masculine podcast.
Hashtag I do not consent. For Catholic men.
By Catholic men.
I don't see. We keep changing. Okay.
We do. But we're just going to have to... Do you want to start over?
No. But I want to go back to tradition. Where I said it and you didn't. No. That was whatever. We're Catholic Guardians. We're traditional dudes. You're traditional dudes and dudettes. And we're all going to tradition. Choo choo.
And if you're not, we hope that we hope that you do.
But if you don't,
what prayer do you want to say?
We'll just do a
Hail Mary?
Sure. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary,
full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
You know what we did not do at the end of the last podcast? We didn't do our plugs.
Plugs. Oh, yeah, for our stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't.
We should be able to go back.
Yeah, I think I'll make a plug.
Okay.
Like, I'll just, type it out. Or I can just edit this to that. When we do the ending plug, I'll cut it, put it, and then sync it in because we're wearing the same thing anyway.
Yeah, we are. All right, today, talking about Our Lady of Good Success. Not Good Conscience.
No.
Because I have my brain right today.
You have your thinking caps on. So yeah, Good Success. Kind of a big deal because it is Mary telling us, it's almost like she's reading the newspaper clippings of today back in the 15 and 1600s.
Yeah, it's this one isn't the same revelation. Like Fatima and Akita are effectively the same revelation, but this is like the precursor. It ties so much into what the Fatima and the Akita revelations are, and with Our Lady of La Salette as well, that it's a precursor to it, but not necessarily the same message.
But so for everybody who's been on this, train, this Marian train for a while, there are 4 Marian apparitions that really go to speak. You good there? There we go. To the issues that Holy Mother Church is experiencing, right? And Mary's been coming down and talking to us about it for a couple years now, right? So it starts with Our Lady of Good Success, and then it goes to La Salette, then to Fatima, then to Akita, right? And Akita and Fatima are really important, not only because they are pretty close to each other time-wise,
both within the 20th century.
Both within the 20th century, although La Salette is pretty close to Fatima as well. What's really important is that Fatima and Akita speak to each other. They're the same message in essence.
Which is exactly what Bishop Ito and Cardinal Ratzinger said.
Yeah.
So let's just jump into it. So a little bit of backstory. So the recipient of the visions of Our Lady of Good Success was Sister Mariana de Jesus Torres, and she was part of the Convent of the Immaculate Conception. And the Convent of the Immaculate Conception was the first convent of religious sisters in the city of Quito in Ecuador. And so the Catholic nobility of Quito petitioned Pope Philip II. Philip II.
I think Philip is a little bit more manly.
Yeah.
Philippe.
But they petitioned him and they said, hey, we would really like a religious order within our city so that women can enjoy the fruits of the religious life. So not only did King Philip II liked the idea. He sent 5 founding sisters from Spain to Ecuador to found the religious order. And the 5 sisters were accompanied by a 13-year-old girl, Mariana de Jesus Torres, who was the niece of the Mother Superior at the time. The convent was formally founded January 13th in 1577. And Mariana, from a relatively... well, not relatively young age, but she was blessed with apparitions and visions for almost her entire life. Not just from Mary, but from Christ,
Jesus.
from Christ himself. So the first really big apparition was in 1582. She saw the tabernacle doors open and Christ himself emerged in his sufferings at Calvary, and behind him was his mother, who was crying pearls. Tears of pearls is what it says. And Mariana, as a very
Isn't it interesting that pearls and Mary have been used twice now?
It's almost like a coincidence.
Yeah, because she's crying pearls here, but she has a rosary made of pearls in Fatima. Is it Fatima or is it Lourdes?
I think it's both.
I think it is both. So this is 3 times. This is the 3rd, 4th.
Well, this is
Fourth,
technically
yeah.
the first. But since it's...
Is Lourdes first? No. Whatever.
Anyways, irregardless.
Irregardlessly, I could give less of a... I could care less.
You could care less. But so Mariana asked, am I to blame for this? Like, am I the reason that you're so upset? Which I think is such an innocent but just goes to show her piety. Like, oh my gosh, what have I done to cause you such suffering? And our Blessed Mother says, no, it's not for you, but the criminal world of the 20th century. So she is flashing forward 320 years into the future. It's not you. It's all these bad
scumbags
that are going to be.
And I like
up.
the way she describes it. It's a criminal world, right? It's not like there's one or two. Like it's a blanketed statement of the overall demise of the moral goodness of the 20th century and its people.
Yeah, not criminals of the 20th century, the criminal world, which I think is very, very important. Going back to what we talked about with Akita, us all being a part of the same world community, the good and the bad are responsible either in their complacency, but we're all responsible for the ills that mankind is performing and perpetuating. But so Mariana hears the voice of the Father. So just like with it wasn't Bernadette, it was Sister Lucy who received the vision of the Holy Trinity. Or was it Bernadette?
It's Bernadette.
Bernadette received the vision of the Holy Trinity. Sister Mariana hears the voice of the Father and sees 3 swords over the head of Christ. And each of the swords has a name. The first is, I will punish heresy. The second is, I will punish blasphemy. And the third, I will punish impurity. And
which Mary spoke to in Fatima. Like, those are the 3 things that she gets so upset about, is the heresies, the sins of the flesh, and then, what was the third one? I forgot.
Blasphemy.
Thank you. But, like, Mary describes our world being all 3 of those things, saying that we need to repent for those sins. And she's saying that at Fatima and here. So it's almost like she's saying the same thing.
Going back to what you said on a couple podcasts ago, it's almost like she is aware of what's going on in the world. And not just of what's going on in the world, but because of her close relationship to her son, not that she herself is omniscient, but she has an understanding of the way things will unfold.
Well, I think that, again, and you and I have talked about this at length. I don't think we've done it on a podcast. I think in heaven, time is different. So it is outside of space-time as we understand it. So I don't think Mary is being blessed with, like,
precognition.
Yeah, like she's not seeing things in the future. I think that Mary in the Beatific Vision is seeing things unfold on earth in a different way than we ourselves are seeing.
It's not so much linear, but it might not necessarily be as it is to God, where it's all in a singularity, where everything's happening all at once.
But again, it's kind of important. Mary isn't like, she is not seeing the future because she is God. And it's very important because we always get kind of dinged by Proddies over saying we worship her. She's not a deity.
No.
She is...
In fact, she goes out of her way when you talk about
her.
When she talks about herself, especially at the apparitions of Our Lady of Guadalupe, all of the symbolism of her veil and of her robes, I am not God. I am his mother.
And she's calling us to serve him.
Yes.
She's never calling us to serve her.
Yeah.
Right? So we just, kind of hashtag clarify that.
We always do that. But so the three swords appear, and then our Blessed Mother asks, "Are you willing to suffer for the sins of the 20th century?" Again, the constant apparitions and the recipients, you are going to suffer
the chastisement
if you submit to it. And Sister Mary says, "Yes, I will." Hashtag I do consent. And then the three swords fall upon her and they pierce her.
Isn't this so? And this is like right away. It's not like there's a lead up into this. It's not like 1 month an angel visits her and talks, oh, there's going to be something coming.
No, all of a sudden, bam, here's Jesus,
door opens,
here's his mom, here's the father, here are three swords.
And are you willing to suffer for the sins of people that haven't even been born yet? Yes.
But then going back to her piety, her immense piety, she says yes. So the three swords fall and she dies. And she is standing.
They don't fall. What do?
They pierce her.
They stab her.
And so she stands before the throne of Christ and she's judged. And she is found blameless.
Mm-hmm.
But then Christ gives her an option. He says, well, you can remain here with me in heaven, or you can go back to earth to suffer your life for the sins of the 20th century. And I don't think anybody would blame her for saying, no, I want to stick around.
Yeah, because the last time she said yes for the 20th century, she got shanked.
But so she says yes. So she goes back to live a life of suffering, and she's miraculously resurrected. Which just going back to all of the recipients, nobody would fault them. Or when we talked about Saint Sebastian on the other podcast, after he was lashed to the rock and filled with arrows, nobody would blame him for getting back to good health and then flying underneath the radar for the rest of his life. But because he speaks the truth, or he was speaking the truth, what did he do? He went to get beaten to death at the feet of the emperor. All of these recipients, they're so pious, and because they know that they have the truth on their side, it's worth it. It is what you can accomplish when you submit to the will of God. Mm-hmm. I know the truth.
Yeah.
This isn't just a belief. I know the truth now, and now I am filled with almost a supernatural strength of character and fortitude to have the courage and the conviction to speak the truth.
Well, it is a supernatural strength of conviction.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like an actual superhuman strength, like
Sister Mary could then go bench press.
Yeah, she doesn't turn into Samson. Samsonite. I was way up. She doesn't turn into, some Hulk for Christ, but she does in spirit.
In heart and spirit, yeah, Hulk for Christ. That's my secret cap. I'm always pious.
That's gonna take me an hour to make that into a GIF. But I'll do it.
But so on February 2nd, 1594, she's praying, and she is praying for Christ and our Blessed Mother to intercede for the severe trials that her convent itself was undergoing, and that many sins in the future would be prevented. And then she hears what she called a sweet voice calling her name. And she looks up and she sees the Blessed Virgin Mary holding the child Jesus in her left arm. So second time, she sees not only our Blessed Mother, but sweet 8 pound, 6 ounce baby Jesus.
Baby Jesus.
And Our Lady replies, I am Mary of good success, the Queen of heaven and earth. As his mother, I carry the child Jesus in my left arm, so that together we may restrain the hand of divine justice, which is always so ready to chastise this unfortunate and criminal world. In my right hand, I carry the crozier, you see, for I desire to govern this convent and as abscess and mother. Satan will begin to try to destroy this work of God, but he will not succeed because I am the queen of victories and the mother of good success, and it is under this invocation I desire to be known throughout all time. And then she lets Sister Mary hold the baby Jesus.
Don't drop him.
How awesome is that? So she gets to hold. The child Jesus.
It's only fitting he just killed her a minute ago.
But it just goes to show again that motherly love. I am trying to hold back the hand of the Father. I can't do it any longer. But don't worry, because through me, as the intercessor, hashtag Fifth Marian Dogma, as the intercessor
Mediatrix
and
of all graces.
mediatrix of all graces, it's going to be okay, because through me, we will prevail. Through your mom who loves you, we're going to be victorious. So then, and then the apparitions just keep coming. On January 16th, 1599, she commanded Sister Mariana to have a statue of her as she appeared with the child Jesus made in her honor. And then she said, why don't you go ahead, take the cord of your religious habit, and why don't you go ahead and measure me? We want to get the measurements right. Quote, when tribulations of spirit and sufferings of body oppress them, and they seem to be drowning in a bottomless sea, let them gaze at my holy image, which will be there a star for the shipwrecked. I will always be there, ready to listen to their lamentations and calm their weeping. Tell them that they should always have recourse to their mother with faith and love. Again,
their mother.
I am their
mother.
I am the mother. Did I miss something?
You're missing a lot of
No,
things.
we're good.
I might have just put mine out on yours.
That's fine.
Whatever.
So then, January 21st, 1610, Mother Mariana, at this point, was not only visited by our Blessed Mother, but by the three of the named archangels. She's visited
3 of the 4 named archangels.
She's visited by Saint Michael, Saint Gabriel, and Saint Raphael. And this, going to take a little while, long quote.
Big one.
But this is all a warning about the 20th century and what's to come. Thus I make it known to you that from the end of the 19th century and shortly after the middle of the 20th century, and what is today the colony and will then be the Republic of Ecuador, the passions will erupt and there will be a total corruption of customs, morals, for Satan will reign almost completely by means of the Masonic sects. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
They will focus principally on the children in order to sustain this general corruption, because if you get the kids and you raise them in that heresy and you raise them in that milieu, they will then spread it as they grow up.
And this is the thing. So I'm gonna cut to this right now in the video. There's a document called the Alta Vendita, which was put out by a Masonic sect in Italy.
You did put my thing out.
Well, no, you just didn't smoke it. Cigars don't have an accelerant in them, so they can't stay lit. You've got to just keep puffing away. But the Alta Vendita is a document that the Masons put out on how to conquer and infiltrate Holy Mother Church from inside.
Yep.
Because the Masons have been trying to do it for centuries from the outside, and they sucked at it. But they could infiltrate, and they in the Alta Vendita, it speaks directly to indoctrinating children so that they grow up in essence a faith that they then live out as adults. Because it's easier to get kids to just believe in something and keep with it than it is to get them to convert.
Kids are inherently trusting.
Yeah. So again, like, these are all things that speak to future events that have happened.
Yeah.
It's not like Masonry isn't affecting the church. I mean, again, I'm going to plug somebody who's not us. You know, Dr. Taylor Marshall came out with the book Infiltration that speaks directly to all of this.
Yeah.
And she doesn't come up with the word Masonry because there was no better term for what she's trying to, speak to. Because some people, a lot of like hardcore weirdos, speak to La Salette and Good Success as kind of being like off kilter. Like they're not really good. And that, when our mother says masonry, she's really talking about people who are trying to chip away at the cornerstone of the faith,
which the Masons are trying to do.
which they are trying to do. But she names masonry.
Yeah,
and that it's not a coincidence. It's never been a coincidence. And to say that it is just kind of ignorant to the supernatural capabilities of our Blessed Mother.
It's intellectually dishonest.
It is.
Yeah.
Go on.
Woe to the children of those times. It will be difficult to receive the sacrament of baptism and also that of confirmation. So now she's starting to say that it's going to be difficult. It's going to be increasingly difficult to receive the sacraments. Often during this epoch, the enemies of Jesus Christ, instigated by the devil, will steal consecrated hosts from the churches so that they may profane the Eucharistic species, which a few years ago, a bunch of Satanists came out. I think it was in New York, and they had claimed that they had a consecrated host and they were going to do their satanic black mass with it. But that's not anything like... That's not an isolated event. Stuff like that has always happened.
There was a Satanist who came out and said that he had stolen 280 something hosts, consecrated hosts, and then he took a picture, like he'd spelled blasphemy or something like that with it. But let's go back to the baptism and confirmation bit. I'm pouring myself some juice here. Living on gin and juice, laid back.
That's the only rapping we can do now.
That's the only rapping that we can do. Look at what we have now in culture, right? How many times have you heard somebody who said their parents are Catholic or their parents are Christian or whatever, and they're not, and you kind of like, you plug a little bit or you pull and you're like, well, why not? And they go, and it's something along the lines of, well, my parents didn't get me baptized because they wanted me to choose freely what my own faith was, right? I've heard it more times than I can count, right? And that speaks to this lack of baptism, right? It's not just that there won't be a presbyterate to baptize because we're getting rid of the sacraments. Post-Vatican II, the sacraments all went through turmoil, right? But people just don't have the desire to baptize anymore. And then you look at how the church does confirmation, at least in the Americans. Confirmation is almost seen as a graduation for Catholics, right?
Yeah,
the timing on it is poor.
It's quote to graduate from church. I don't have to go back.
Yeah, it is.
I did this to appease my parents, and now we're done.
And then you get the abuse of the Eucharist because you have these ill and uncatechized Catholics who were poorly baptized, poorly confirmed, poorly catechized. They come back from college, and what do? They come back to Easter or Christmas, and they get in the Eucharistic line. They come up in a state of mortal sin. And they come up and they receive the Eucharist.
Yeah, but they don't believe it's the true presence of Christ anyway.
Anyway, right?
Yeah.
Because they're part of the 74% of Catholics that don't go to Mass every week anyway.
Yeah. As for the sacrament of matrimony, it will be attacked and deeply profaned. Oh my gosh. The Catholic spirit will rapidly decay. The precious light of the faith will gradually be extinguished. Added to this will be the effects of secular education, which will be one of the reasons of the death of priestly and religious vocations.
And if you look at, and so this is not me saying Vatican II caused this, right? Because a lot of things led up to Vatican II, but how Vatican II was promulgated leads us into some of these issues. You look at the number of priests pre-Vatican II, post-Vatican II, it drops like a rock. It just disappears. And then the same thing with vocations to the married life.
Yep.
It's all dropping, and our populations are only increasing. So it's not like population is decreasing and the number of priests and the number of marriages we have are going down in proportion. They're separating.
Yeah. Because it's no longer attractive to enter the religious life, and you have an increase in the rise of civil unions, or you hear so much. Well, I mean, we don't need a piece of paper to tell us
to tell us that we love each other.
Yeah, which I agree. I mean, I'm fully supportive of the state getting out of marriage because I believe marriage to be a sacrament.
Yeah, because
I want an increase in sacramental marriage and not civil unions. The sacrament of holy orders.
Which is why, so this is like a side tangent. Yeah. I really don't like the fact that the church has the ability to legally marry people, to be the witness, right? Like, I think you should almost have to do both. You go to a justice of the peace and you get it done there. pre or post your sacramental marriage. I don't like the ability for you to go to the justice of the peace, get the paper, and then go to the church, and the church can sign off on it. Because it mixes too much of church and state. But it just, again, we've seen a destruction of the sacrament of matrimony culturally, and even in Catholic circles, where it's not a big deal anymore that we have so many people called to the single life vocation. And that's such a new age piece of garbage.
I don't know if it's necessarily new age, but
modernist. Because
I just really think, if you can prevent people, good church going people, from either entering the vocation of marriage or the vocation of the religious life, you can destroy a faith. You can destroy the church from the inside, because you no longer have two people willfully joining themselves in a sacramental union and then having children to raise in that faith. And then you also don't have people entering the other side of it, which is how sacraments are bestowed now through apostolic succession. The sacrament of holy orders will be ridiculed, oppressed, and despised. Yes, yes, and yes. The devil will try to persecute the ministers of the Lord in every possible way. He will labor with cruel and subtle astuteness to deviate them from the spirit of their vocation, and will corrupt many of them. These depraved priests who will scandalize the Christian people will make the hatred of bad Catholics and the enemies of the Roman Catholic and Apostolic Church fall upon all priests. And that right there, just complete. It's just line by line to a T what happened when the sex abuse scandal broke in the early 2000s. Now, because what's the joke now? Oh, I went to Catholic church. Well, don't worry, I made it through okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember growing up Catholic and still having that air of pedophilia even before the scandal broke in 2002.
Because it was something that was kind of hush. It was something that was known but wasn't really talked about.
Exactly. Like, you don't want to be the altar boy, or like, oh, are you at all? Do show us where the priest touched you. It'd be easier to show you where he didn't touch me, right? Like, those jokes went on even before the scandal broke in 2002. But now you look, and this is something that I think is really important. Father Mike Schmitz put out a video after the McCarrick scandal broke, and he was upset. Visually, I think he cries, but he talks about how people were asking him how he felt about it. And it dawned on him that people actually didn't know that other priests were upset about it.
That's a heartbreaking video.
But again, it's like we are accusing all priests of the sins of a few priests. Now, granted, I think that the presbyter did a crappy job of kind of policing their own and calling these things out when they were occurring.
Because you have the scandal of, oh, well, we're going to remove this priest from this parish and then move him down to this
or
to
they'll
this
send
diocese.
him off to therapy. I mean, there's the case in our diocese where we had a priest get caught in a homosexual act, and he got sent off to, the 30-day therapy camp where they pray the gay away, and then he came back to his ministry. It's disgusting, but you get good priests who are getting accused of bad things, and it happens all the time. Look at Cardinal, he's in Australia. I don't know what his name is. Bell. And he's in an Australian jail right now because he got convicted wrongly of a crime that he didn't commit. And our mother's words ring true, where the innocent priests are being blasphemed and ridiculed for the sins of others.
And as a result, it no longer is appealing. But you also look at the state of the seminary right now, where so many seminarians are coming out and saying how easy it is for them to become corrupted, or that they were corrupted. Like, why would you want to, as a father? Why would you want your son to go into that?
Yeah, there's that article that one of our priests put out that spoke to the blatant homosexuality in the seminary, not only by seminarians, but by those who are in the position of authority, which then it speaks to the authority. Did you say that one yet? The authority of those who
No, I don't think
That's okay. That's later.
But quote.
I'll say this when that line comes up.
Further, in these unhappy times, there will be unbridled luxury, which will ensnare the rest into sin and conquer innumerable frivolous souls who will be lost. Innocence will almost no longer be found in children, nor modesty in women. In this supreme moment of need of the church, the one who should speak will fall silent. So good people will shut up. They won't speak out against the evils. And overall, like even with the 19th and the 20th centuries, overall poverty at a world level has been on the decline. So we live in one of the most luxurious and physically, materially comfortable times that this world has ever seen. And so people are very easy. We talked about it before. It's so easy to become distracted. Where you don't have to focus on God. You don't have to focus on your eternal soul because you have all of these material comforts which will distract you for the next hour, the next 2 hours, the next 2 years, and then the next version of it comes out, and then that's going to distract you, and you don't have to focus on anything eternal. It's everything to distract you to keep you in the now.
And you have what's the last line of that quote? Because
the one who should speak will fall silent. In this supreme moment of need of the church, the one who should speak will fall silent. And I gotta say,
there's that quote on the airplane.
I mean, is that the Pope?
Yep. Well, the Pope. Well, I mean, I'm gonna put in the
one who should speak, the leader of the church, the captain of our ship, who we look to as effectively the mouthpiece of God,
fall silent.
But what does he do? You know what? We're not going to talk about the sex abuse scandal. Let's talk about plastic in the oceans.
I will not say a word on this.
Blank off on that. We need to fix our house. Because how are people going to want to come home? How are people going to want to join the wedding feast if they think that they're going to get molested by some of the celebrants?
And not just being molested, but watching men do unholy and satanic things to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next, another apparition, February 2nd, 1610. Our Lady appeared and repeated her command to have the statue made. Tell the bishop that it is my will and the will of my most holy son. So it's not just me asking for this. My son kind of wants this too. That your name be hidden at all costs, for it is not fitting that anyone at the present know the details or origin of how the statue came to be made, for this knowledge will only become known to the general public in the 20th century. During that epoch, the church will find herself attacked by terrible hordes of the Masonic sect, and this poor Ecuadorian land will be agonizing because of the corruption of customs, unbridled luxury, the impious press, and secular education. The vices of impurity, blasphemy, and sacrilege will dominate in this time of depraved desolation, and that one who should speak out will be silent. So again, saying
the exact same thing.
The good people who should be speaking out, they're not going to speak out. And then this is pretty cool. The statue itself gets finished by angels. So our Blessed Mother says specifically in the vision, she names the sculptor. This is the person who needs to build it, but the work is going to be finished by angels. So the sculptor commences the statue, and then on January 16th, 1611, in her vision, not only did Sister Mariana see our Blessed Mother, she saw the Holy Trinity. She saw all 9 choirs of angels, specifically St. Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel, and then Seraphic St. Francis. They approached the statue, and they finished it. Bam! Made by the hands of angels. Could you imagine? That's so cool.
How long did it take?
Apparently it was...
Were they under budget? That's all we really care about in the church. Was it under budget?
So then, after the statue was completed, our mother entered the statue and animated it for a brief period of time, and
because the measurements are right.
The measurements are correct. Oh my gosh, like the bodily assumption. Mother Mariana attested that to the bishop. And then the bishop consecrated and installed the statue. And then the sculptor came out and said, I didn't finish it. I don't know how this happened because it wasn't me. So as a result, even the sculptor said it has to be the work of angels.
Because it's not like Mariana did it herself.
Yeah, exactly. Then 24 years later, I think it's to the date, 24 years later. This is the most important of all the apparitions. So February 2nd, 1634, during the feast of the purification of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother Mariana was praying before the Blessed Sacrament, and she saw the sanctuary light extinguish, and the entire chapel was shrouded in darkness. And then she hears, "Prepare your soul so that, increasingly purified, it might enter into the fullness of our joy of the Lord. Oh, if mortals, and in particular religious souls, could know what heaven is and what it is to possess God, how differently they would live, nor would they spare themselves any sacrifice in order to possess him." If only they knew, going to Fatima, when the three children were granted that vision of hell, Sister Lucy said, if we had not already been promised salvation in heaven, we would have died of fright right then.
Yeah.
So this is essentially the inverse. Not, I'm going to scare you into believing. If you only knew what heaven is like, you would do everything in your power to get there. You would do everything you could. You would speak out when you're called to be silent, against the corruption, against the impurity, and against the depravity of the modern world. So then she gives 5 prophecies, and since this is going to be another one, so interject when you need to. This is going to be another long one. She says there are 5 reasons why the sanctuary light is extinguished. The first significance is that at the end of the 19th century and into the 20th century, various heresies will be propagated in this land, then a free republic.
What an interesting concept.
As these heresies spread and dominate, the precious light of faith will be extinguished in souls by the almost total corruption of morals. During this period, there will be great physical and moral calamities, both public and private. The small number of souls who, hidden, will preserve the treasure of the faith and the virtues will suffer an unspeakable, cruel, and prolonged martyrdom. Many of them will succumb to death from the violence of their sufferings, which, I mean, in the 20th century, you had countless martyrs for the faith because of the violence.
In the 20th century, there have been more Christian martyrs than in all 19
because of the
combined.
Violent spread of the atheistic religion of communism and of collectivism.
It's the militant atheism, the Marxism, where it's not just enough to let bygones be bygones. They have to kill you.
Mm-hmm. Which it was, there were effectively 2 ideas. You had I believe it was Trotsky. No, it was Lenin and Stalin. You had the Lenin idea of, we will do this one nation at a time, and then you had the Stalin of, we're doing it right now. It's continuous revolution. In order to free men from bondage to these heresies, those whom the merciful love of my most holy Son will destine for that restoration will need great strength of will, constancy, valor, and much confidence in God. To test this faith and confidence of the just, there will be occasions when everything will seem to be lost and paralyzed. This will be the happy beginning of the complete restoration. So good people are going to be tested to see if they have the fortitude, if they have the intestinal fortitude to continue to stand up for the truth. It's that gospel parable of the seeds that the sower spills, and some fall on the good soil, some fall on the rocky soil, and the ones that fall on the rocky soil immediately spring up, but then they don't have the roots, so they wither under the sun because they don't have the strength of character or the complete trust in the faith that what they are believing in is the truth.
Which is, in essence, if you look at it, it's the Protestant faith now.
It's
so great, and I mean, like, all of us have met Protestants who are on fire, but then you dig a little deeper, and there's not much there. And now what we're seeing is a widespread falling away from Protestantism. Like, you have all of these people who are leaving their churches, leaving their faith, breaking off and making their own, because it's just not deep enough to sustain a weathered battering from the devil.
Yeah, my wife was telling me there's this, I can't remember who it is, but this really big Protestant minister, he's going through a divorce now, and he's completely rejected even the idea of God. Because obviously his faith was not strong enough. His faith was probably just vested in his wife, and now that they're getting a divorce, oh, well, then there must be no God anyway. Yeah. And then in another podcast, going to give a shout out to the guys over at Catching Foxes, in one of their episodes a couple years ago, they were interviewing one of the singers from the band Under Oath. And Under Oath was a hardcore, I think it's considered metalcore.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure I get it right because like people in the metal community will like shank you if you get the wrong terminology of which metal genre it is. But they were part of that like mid 2000s wave of like hardcore Christian music, like Flyleaf, POD, all that stuff. But like the other bands at the time, they rejected that label of Christian rock or Christian metal because it's not the only thing that defines us. I think it's probably one of the most important thing that defines you, but whatever. But all of the guys in the band now, they just completely outright reject God.
Yeah.
Because they experience trials in their lives, and at the first sign of struggle, who they should have fled to, they have just completely turned their backs
them aside.
Yeah. So then the second meaning that the sanctuary light was extinguished is that my convent, being greatly reduced in size, will be submerged in a fathomless ocean of indescribable bitterness, and will seem to be drowning in these diverse waters of tribulations. Many authentic vocations will perish. Injustice will enter this convent, disguised under the name of false charity, wreaking havoc in souls, and faithful souls weeping in secret and imploring that such dire times be shortened, will suffer a continuous and slow martyrdom. So
look at the USCCB. The amount of money that the USCCB gets from the federal government in the form of grant money that they need to sustain themselves, that they go out and team up with pro-abortion groups, anti-Christian, anti-Catholic groups in order to garner more people through fake charity. And it's all about immigration right now.
Where the church feel good.
It's all about immigration. The church gets a certain dollar amount per immigrant that they help place in a job or in a community, or they get money per thing they do with immigrants. And immigration is the big thing right now, right? But it's this fake charity that the church through the USCCB is proclaiming, and they're doing it, and it's driving good traditional Catholics away. The Peter Pence Fund, it gave $500,000 to illegally funnel people across the border.
Wow.
And it's just garbage, but it's this faux charity that we're proclaiming that is coming home to roost, and it's driving people away from legitimate vocations and legitimate faithfuls. But it just calls to mind, it is, when we talk about that faux charity, that fakeness, it's not in a piety way, it's in a political way now.
Yeah, it's not you're doing this for the betterment of that person. You're doing it to further your own political agenda, or you're doing it to make yourself feel good. Which, if that's the reason that you're engaging in charity, that's a sin in and of itself.
Yeah,
because you're doing it so that other people can see how much better you are. That's the leavened bread of the Pharisees and the Sadducees.
It should. And again, like, if the Catholic Church really, if the U.S., I'm going to not say the Catholic Church, if the Council of Catholic Bishops, the USCCB, if they really cared about immigrants, they'd stop taking money from the federal government and they'd go out and do it in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
But they say, oh, but we can do so much more good with all of this money we get. It's like, but their hands are bound.
Yeah. But then the last thing that she says, the faithful weeping in secret. So the people that don't speak out, they're just prolonging their own martyrdom. Because they're not speaking out. So guess what? You may be ridiculed and persecuted and even killed because of you speaking out, but because of your silence, it's going to be worse and it's going to be drawn out, because your martyrdom is now by association. Because, I mean, you get the sideways looks as well when you tell people that you're Catholic, or you mention it. Oh, you're one of those people.
Yeah, or like when we tell other Catholics that we go to the Latin Mass. Oh,
really?
You're one of them?
Oh, you're going to make me do that?
Yeah, you're right. I am.
I am going to receive the Eucharist on the tongue, and I'm going to receive on my knees.
Yeah. If I could dig a hole and crawl into the ground deep enough to receive the Eucharist, I would.
Yeah. The third reason the lamp was extinguished is because of the spirit of impurity that will saturate the atmosphere in those times. Like a filthy ocean, it will run through the streets, squares, and public places with an astonishing liberty. There will be almost no virgin souls in the world. The delicate flower of virginity will be threatened by complete annihilation. But then our Blessed Mother promised that there would always be some good souls in cloisters where it might take root, grow, and live like a shield to deflect divine wrath. Without virginity, it would be necessary for fire from heaven to fall upon these lands to purify them. And you look at
San Francisco.
You look at
literally
in the streets.
I'm going to say this again. In the streets.
But not just that. I mean, the hazard pay that even the public utility workers now get because of the fact that they have to climb telephone poles where drug addicts are sticking used needles in to dispose of them. Like, are you really going to risk getting AIDS, HIV, or hepatitis?
A, B, C, D, or E?
Because of your job? Well, maybe for $100K a year plus benefits, you might, plus pension.
But that doesn't work in San Francisco, because I think a 976 square foot house in San Francisco is on the market for $600K.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I mean, it's just so sad because you look at, in the 20th century, you have the explosion of the sexual liberation movement, and now it's progressed to the point of the gender fluid and the gender
non-binary,
the gender identity issues, where you destroy the fundamental truths of mankind is created man and woman for a particular reason, because there are things that men biologically are able to do and women biologically are able to do that neither of them can.
I can't get pregnant.
And women can't produce semen.
They can't?
As hard as they might, they can't. As much as you lie to yourself and tell yourself that you are of this gender, you're not. At the end of the day, you aren't. But what that does is it destroys the moral foundations of our society. And then if the purpose of the marital act is no longer for procreation, then it's just a recreation.
Yeah, and
if it's a recreation, then do it as much as you want. Engage in it as much as you want with whoever you want, with no reservation at all. Yeah. The fourth reason, and this is the longest one, so jump in whenever you want. The fourth reason the lamp is being extinguished is that the Masonic sects, having infiltrated all social classes, will subtly introduce the teaching into domestic ambiances in order to corrupt the children, and the devil will glorify in dining upon the exquisite delicacy of the hearts of children. I just got chills saying that. Because children don't know any better, and you're leading children astray right into Satan's arms.
And there are, Masonic groups that are directly pointed towards children, right? So it's like, in essence, it's the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts of the Masons. Mm-hmm. And all they do at a young age is they indoctrinate the youth into a Masonic group. And Masonry at its low levels isn't directly satanic. They don't make oaths to Satan right away, but all of the Masons that come out of Freemasonry that are high up, when they leave, all they speak about is the not worship, but the satanic bend all of high up Freemasonry is geared towards. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Alta Vendita.
During these unfortunate times, evil will assault childhood innocence. In this way, vocations to the priesthood will be lost, which will be a true calamity.
So that's the sexual abuse scandal.
Yep.
But moreover, when you have the over-sexualization of our children, the death of innocence, look at
where your child can. We don't want to put a gender on their birth certificate anymore because our child has not determined for themselves yet. Guess what? My child determines that she wants chocolate ice cream for dinner. I tell her no, because it's not good for her.
But look, so like the devil eating the souls and the hearts of children. It calls to mind the picture that went around a couple months ago of the green-haired drag queen hugging the child. And he doesn't look like a woman. I thought the whole purpose of being a drag queen was to look like a woman. This dude doesn't look like a chick. He looks like a green-haired devil.
But that's the whole purpose now as this movement expands, because it's no longer even a physical appearance. It's all about how you feel inside. All you have to do is, Michael Scott, declare it. Mm-hmm. With no other change to your physical body, you can just say, I now identify as a woman. I'm not going to shave. I'm not going to go through sex reassignment surgery. I'm just going to say I'm a woman.
Yeah, and not like strapping a makes you a man.
According to them, it does.
Or cutting it off makes you a woman.
But that's a woman's penis.
Yeah, well, that was a woman's penis, and then it just hit the floor, and now it's the floor's penis.
Our Lady promised that during the time there would still be religious communities who will sustain the church and holy ministers of the altar. Against them, though, the impious will rage a cruel war, letting fall on them... I don't even know how to say these words, except this one, vexations, in order to impede the fulfillment of their ministry. But they, like firm columns, will remain unswerving and will confront everything with the spirit of humility and sacrifice, with which they will be vested by virtue of the infinite merits of my most holy Son, who will love them in the innermost fibers of his most holy and tender heart. So he's just going to love to death the people who are going to stand up for the truth.
Yeah.
The secular clergy will be far removed from its ideal because the priests will become careless in their sacred duties, lacking the divine compass. They will stray from the road traced by God for the priestly ministry and they will become attached to wealth and riches, which they will unduly strive to obtain. Wasn't it that German bishop that had a solid gold bathtub?
No, that's Donald Trump. He's got the solid gold.
No, what was his name? It was the millionaire bishop. He was known in the media, but I believe it was a German bishop a couple years ago. And
the German bishops all suck anyway.
But I mean,
there's one or two good.
Like the only thing that really springs to mind, not the only thing, but the thing that springs to my mind first and foremost is the fact that as a priest, you look at your hands, and they themselves were consecrated with chrism oil, because those digits can perform the miracle of transubstantiation. Those digits can dole out the sacrament of baptism, of confirmation,
extreme unction.
But members of the clergy either no longer believe or no longer care, because then those same digits wreak havoc and are the instruments of such vile and detestable acts
of pain and suffering
that will then go back in those same digits on Sunday, because of the indelible mark, will still be able to transubstantiate the host.
Which then all that does is it causes a lack of belief in the laity, because if these hands that are consecrated to God and do such beautiful things, miraculous things, are also doing evil things, then obviously the miraculous nature of those hands no longer matter to the person who owns them,
because they obviously don't believe.
Because they don't care.
They either don't believe it, or it's because it's
not that important.
It's not real.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. How the church will suffer on that occasion, the dark night of the lack of a prelate and father to watch over them with paternal love, gentleness, strength and discernment, and prudence. Many priests will lose their spirit, placing their souls in great danger. Therefore, pray incessantly without tiring, and weep with bitter tears in the secrecy of your heart. Implore our celestial Father that for the love of the Eucharistic heart of my most holy Son and his precious blood shed with such generosity, he might take pity on his ministers and bring to an end those ominous times, and send to the church the prelate who will restore the spirit of her priests. We got to have a pope that was going to lead us.
Yeah, you need a pope to stand up, not be silent, and to be a man, like a man's man, right?
Kind of like what St. Catherine of Siena, I can't remember who the pope was at the time, but she was on letter writing basis with the pope and just chastising him, like, dude, man up.
What is
Be a man. Stand up.
Be manly.
Be manly. What else is there?
What else is there?
My most holy Son and I will love this favored Son with a love of predilection, and we will gift him with a rare capacity, humility of heart, docility to divine inspiration, the strength to defend the rights of the church, and a tender and compassionate heart, so that, like another Christ, he will assist the great and the small, without despising the more unfortunate souls who ask him for light and counsel in their doubts and hardships. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because, again, this is a very, very long quote. In order to dissipate this black cloud which prevents the church from enjoying the clear day of liberty, smoke has entered the sanctuary, there will be a formidable and frightful war which will see the bloodshed of countrymen and foreigners, of secular and religious priests and of religious. That night will be most horrible, for humanely speaking, evil will seek to triumph. or humanly speaking. This then will mark the arrival of my hour, when I, in a marvelous way, will dethrone the proud and cursed Satan, trampling him under my feet and fettering him in the infernal abyss. Thus the church and country will finally be free of his cruel tyranny. So that goes right to the third vision, or the third secret of Fatima. Terrible war, religious people, mass dead.
Which then speaks to when Mary asks the in essence, she's asking the seers to tell the Pope that they need to consecrate Russia to our Immaculate Heart, because that's when she can come down and trample and dethrone Satan out of that country. Yeah. But that doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. We bless the world, though. We consecrate the world.
Yeah, and then, the Russian people.
The fifth reason that the lamp was extinguished is due to the laxity and negligence of those who possess great wealth, who will indifferently stand by and watch the church be oppressed, virtue be persecuted, and the triumph of the devil, without piously employing their riches for the destruction of this evil and the restoration of the faith. It is also due to the indifference of the people in allowing the name of God to be gradually extinguished, and in adhering to the spirit of evil, freely delivering themselves over to vices and passions. So, and then more quotes, which I'm not going to go over. But so it's going to get really bad. Things are going to get really bad. People are going to be led astray. And then the final apparition occurred during the last 10 months of her life. December 8th, 1634, Feast of the Immaculate Conception. Our Lady appeared to Mother Mariana for the last time, again with the archangels Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. And she says, in the 20th century, this devotion to Our Lady of Good Success will work prodigies in the spiritual as well as temporal spheres, because it is the will of God to reserve this invocation and knowledge of your life for that century, when the corruption of customs will be almost general and the precious life of faith will be all but extinguished. And then Mother Mariana died at the most holy hour of 3 p.m., January 16th, 1635.
Well, bam!
And then, actually, going back to that that final revelation on December 8th, that's when we have your quote.
Which one?
The pontificate.
Oh, now I gotta grab my paper, because this is where it gets juicy.
Yep.
Oh, so the Pope's infallibility will be declared a dogma of faith by the same Pope chosen to proclaim the dogma of the mystery of my Immaculate Conception. He will be persecuted and imprisoned in the Vatican through the usurpation of the pontifical states, through the malice, envy, avarice of an earthly monarch. And that, if you look at what happened to the Vatican state in Italy, when Italy kind of threatened the Pope, and when they were like, listen, like, there's two ways this works. Like, you listen or pony up, because we're going to start taking back the Vatican. And eventually the Pope ended up making a deal with the Italian government to remain autonomous from them. But it just goes to speak of the overall corruption that Holy Mother Church has gone through in political nature, in apolitical nature, right? And a lot of people blame a lot of popes for a lot of bad things. But you just have to kind of look at removing the political nature from the church. And every time you look at one of these compromises, right, they're all based around trying to save a comfortable life and maintain that weak weak-natured Catholic, right? We're trying to make it easier for people. We're trying to do this. And again, like, this is something that I wrote about the other day. The business of the church is the salvation of souls, not the preservation of human life.
Yeah.
If you can do both at the same time, that's beautiful, and it should be commended, and it should be tried. But ultimately, the church isn't about the now. The church is about your eternal soul, right?
But it's also contradictory to Christ in the Gospels. He says you need to pick up your cross. Your life is going to be suffering. If you're doing things correctly, if you're
doing things the right way, and which is why all of these dogmas, all of these visions speak about martyrdom, sacrifice, piety, and then a small number who will remain,
Yeah.
who will then reinvigorate the church,
Mhm.
right? But it comes down, like, if we're always trying to make it so easy for so many people, then we don't really do any good. But it's all about this political nature to it.
Yeah.
We're trying to get so big to help as many people as we can. It's like, that's not the church's job. The church's job isn't to help people, it's to save souls.
But I mean, it's also like what the Blessed Mother said would happen. I believe it was Pope Pius IX, the Pope who declared the Immaculate Conception.
Declared it.
He dogmatically declared it, but he's also the one who declared dogmatically papal infallibility.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Blessed Mother said came true. She also says that in the 19th century, there will be a truly Catholic president in Ecuador, a man of character whom God our Lord will give the palm of martyrdom on the square adjoining this convent. He will consecrate the republic to the Sacred Heart of my most holy Son, and the consecration will sustain the Catholic religion in the years that will follow. And that Catholic president was Gabriel Garcia Moreno, who consecrated Ecuador to the Sacred Heart of Jesus in 1873, and then was summarily assassinated. And by members of the Masonic sect,
Mm-hmm.
and Pope Pius IX paid tribute to him as a victim of faith and Christian charity. So everything that our Blessed Mother said would happen came true. So if we believe, like in just these things where she says, a Pope is going to declare this dogma and papal infallibility, and then a Catholic president is going to do this, and then he's going to be killed for it,
by Masons.
Why would we not then believe the other visions that she has given to not just or Mother Mariana, but to Juan Diego, to Bernadette, to the three children at Fatima, to Sister Akita? Why do we not believe that the church Sister Sasagawa? Why do we not believe that she is also correct in all of these tribulations that sprung up in the 19th and 20th centuries and the effects that they are having on the church and on the world today?
It comes down to, and this is something, I believe in the validity of our Pope. I think he's a piece of...
You have respect for the office.
I respect the office and the authority that office has, but he's abdicating his responsibility.
He is not the Pope that is Our Lady of Good Success is talking about.
Yeah, no, he is not. And he is not doing the things that a Pope should do. Stand up and fight for the faith. We're walking around trying to appease everybody through this silence.
Appease the secular world and civil governments.
Yeah, and it's
the sake of people's souls.
And that's exactly what it is. And so
his inaction and unwillingness
is leading
to the next pontificate.
Well, I mean, it might, unless he, stacks the deck against conservatism in the College of Cardinals. But so you need a Jimmy Carter to get a Ronald Reagan. You need a Barack Obama to get a Donald Trump.
I still don't like Trump.
You don't need to like him, but look at what they're doing, right? Like, Ronald Reagan wasn't the greatest guy ever either, but you get these.
But there was a massive economic
it's a bottoming out, right? Like, where things couldn't get any more free and liberal before somebody comes back and they're like, let's undo some of these horrible things that have been done to help kind of not free, because liberty is dangerous for people, but to reorient what our purpose is, right? So Jimmy Carter led to Ronald Reagan. Barack Obama has led to Donald Trump. Who is Pope Francis leading us to? It might not be Pope Francis is the bottom yet, right?
Which you look at the state of things in the church right now, and that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
But you also have to ask, are we really suffering as a church?
No, we're not.
As much as we could be.
We could be suffering a great deal more, and we should be suffering a great deal more. Right? But we have an air of luxury about us, right? And you can look at how bishops interact in America, at least, where they're treated, again, there's a level of royalty that should be given to them because they are princes. I mean, they are princes. But a detachment that royalty has from its people.
Yeah.
And you can look at the detachment of bishops from the laity and the presbyterate in general.
Just not answering my letters.
Not yeah. It's a blatant ignoring of the people that they should be in tune with the most.
Yeah.
And it's because it is more convenient and less conflicting
and politically expedient
to ignore the laity and these proclamations from our Blessed Mother.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to live a life. It is less conflicting to live a life that is sinful because you don't have to go against the grain. There's less friction when you just sin all the time because you don't hold your help to a higher standard, because you don't force yourself to live out of a society that calls you to doing all of these fleshy, sinful acts. In essence, the wave of garbage has already coated the street.
It's the church of feel good instead of the church of doing good.
Yeah. So again, like back to what I said the other day in one of our posts on Instagram, the church is in the business of saving souls, not in sugarcoating doctrine.
Yeah.
But we're spending, like, if the church is the salt of the earth, you can't be salty when you put sugar on everything. Stay salty, my friends. But really, it's about how much are you willing to sacrifice? And I don't just mean in a material sense. How much are you willing to lose? Small house, crappy car, painful job. How much are you willing to sacrifice spiritually? Are you willing to live in a times where we only get the priests who are good, but because we have so little ordained ministers, because we're only getting the good ones now, that you don't get to receive the Eucharist every week? It might be 3 or 4 or 5 weeks in between when you can receive the sacraments. Mm-hmm. Are you willing to live in a church like that? Most of us would say no. But they don't even really believe in the true presence of the Eucharist or in the sacraments, so it doesn't really matter to them, right? They'll say yes because it's the church of give me now, as opposed to the church remnant. Well, I'll wait. I will sacrifice, and that will make it unduly more difficult for me because I'll have to live a life so much more pious, because it might be 5 weeks in between when I can receive sacrament of confession.
Or going to reconciliation to alleviate any mortal sins, or
so
receive the Eucharist to get rid of the venial sins.
Right? Like, I know a lot of Catholics who live kind of, poopy lives because they are so wealthy in the ability for them to receive the sacrament of not confirmation, of confession, of penance.
Which, going back to what we talked about, presumption of God's mercy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I can do it because I'll just be able to go to confession.
Well, what if you can't just go?
What if you can't just go? What if it's 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks?
Yeah. Right?
What happens then? You'll respect the sacraments more when you can't receive them as often.
Maybe more Catholics will actually believe in the true presence, or maybe you'll see the falling away, and the only ones going to the Eucharistic celebration are the ones who believe in the true presence.
And I think that's where it's going.
Yeah.
Right? Is you have to shrink the number to get to a point, because it'll be
which is what our Blessed Mother says,
and that's what it says in the Bible. I mean, literally, like, this is all written in Scripture, so none of what we're saying is like, shocking. None of this should be shocking if you have a basic understanding of Scripture and the actual meaning behind the words, and then you put them in light. And again, you overlay these things. You look at Scripture and you put over it what the words of our Blessed Mother are saying, and the saints, and the magisterium, and the church tradition, and then you look at what's going on in our world today. I don't know how you can't see all of this and believe.
Yeah.
But we as a whole, we get out of it because
it doesn't, honestly,
it's
because
willful
it doesn't feel good.
It doesn't, you're right.
It does not feel good, and I'm here for the good time.
And I'm here for the feel good.
I'm not here for the end of times, I'm here for the good time.
I think that's a great way to end it.
Yeah.
All right.
Visit us, www.catholicguardians.com.
You can see it right here. CatholicGuardians.com. Be Manly. Click the Be Manly tab. Join our Be Manly fraternity. It is growing. We're a masculine podcast, an unapologetically masculine podcast at that.
Yep.
While you're there, click the online store. Pick up one of our cool Memento Mori rosaries.
Trademark rosary.
You can pick up Catholic Guardians mug. It's got the Catholic Guardians logo on one side, which is a very cool logo.
You can pick up a Catholic Guardians t-shirt.
or it's got the St. Michael's prayer on the other side. Pick up a sticker, pick up a phone case. We got a couple pro-life t-shirts. We're actually coming out with, they're going to be, I don't want to sound rude, they're going to be cheaper shirts, but they're going to have some of our big one-liners. We get a lot of people who DM us. We at Catholic Guardians have some really good one-liners. If you don't pray the rosary every day, you're wrong. Be manly. What else is there? And then we're going to add to it the church is in the business of saving souls, not sugarcoating doctrine.
Yep.
So we've got some. They're going to be less quality. Like they're not going to feel as nice. There'll still be a good shirt, but we're going to do them so that we can sell them for dirt cheap, so that people can pick up as many of these cool one-liners as possible and wear them to church as often as possible.
Yeah. Instagram, Catholic_Guardians.
YouTube, Facebook is just Catholic Guardians. Same thing on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. It's Catholic Guardians. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave us an actual written review. That helps us get exposed to a wider audience of Catholic podcast consumers.
The more 5-star reviews and the more written reviews we get, the higher we'll appear on the charts, the more we can spread this message, the more this ministry will expand.
So right now, what I want you to do is click the bell, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening on podcast, what I would like you to do in the 30 seconds after we are done, please go, because we get about 150 to 200 listens to our podcast every day, which is great. And God bless you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. But we only have a handful of stars and comments. Really, please, guys, take the time and send us a review. We would really appreciate it. It means the world to us, the kind things that you guys write, and even sometimes the not kind things, the constructive criticism that you guys give to us. It's great because, again, we're only we're Obamacare full-time, part-time, amateur theologians. So, yeah.
Email us, info@catholicguardians.com, and pray the rosary daily. If you're not praying the rosary, you're wrong.
You're wrong. Pray it with your family, pray it for your family, and pray it over your family. And with that, what other Latins do you have? Do you have the Hail Mary in Latin? Mm-hmm. All right. Get started.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
Amen.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
Have a good night.